Hey guys, Tightrope here, and today we're taking a look at the new maps and the feature changes that arrived in the 1.8.0 patch for Company of Heroes 3. Having a look at the sector layout of the new 2v2 map, Road to Primasole. First off, having a look at the munitions points, we've got 3 mediums down here, 3 mediums through the middle, 3 mediums over here, and then 2 lows over here, for a total of 100 munitions, which I think is the highest of any map in the map pool currently. I think usually the bottom end of the range is 80. So yeah, at 100 on this map, high munitions. In terms of fuel, we've got these, +5 fuels on both teams' base, pretty safe. But then the rest of the fuels are over here, closer to the middle of the map. Might see quite a lot of competition for a total of 40 fuel per minute as well, which is on the low end of the range. Some maps have 50 fuel per minute. On top of that, we can see that we've got these cutoffs here, which can cut off this whole side if they work correctly. So you can imagine these cutoffs seeing quite a lot of play. Maybe players are incentivized to come over to this side of the map to try and dominate this fuel, get a ticking advantage, but then it'll be quite easy for your opponents to then cut you off if you leave this exposed. So that's quite an interesting dynamic. And potentially, you might want to push over here with maybe 2 players worth of stuff to try and contest this, or maybe like 1.5 players with stuff to try and contest this area. But then, your opponents are going to get some like easy resources, might be able to harass your fuels if you do that over here. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic on this map in terms of sector layout. Now having a look at the map itself. First off, I want to mention these HQs are reasonably far apart, such that if I put a med bunker between the two, you can see it doesn't quite reach both of them at once, which definitely does matter. Sharing healing, very common in these team games. And generally a bit of an advantage to allies because they have easy access to early healing that can be split like this. So worth mentioning, might require a slight reposition if you want to share healing in this fashion. Now having a look around the map itself, got some nice flowers here. An interesting split here with a big sight blocker through the middle. Coming out to this side. More flowers. This is a monster of a building. Gigantic old thing here. It's got these at the end here as well. Huge building. Is this like the biggest building of any map? Yeah, it might be. Crazy. Mega structure. Interesting. Okay, it looks like those are blocked off on the other side, so only one attack vector for these. Well, can approach them from this side. Could actually be okay maybe if you want to flame them out on the other end. Oh yeah, I did check the vision on these as well. Check the squad inside this because I thought maybe from the top window you'll be able to see over these hedgerows, but if we turn on the fog, not really the case. You got a little bit of a channel of vision through here, but you can't really see over the walls from that building, which thought may be the case. Also, I wasn't really familiar with this asset. Hadn't really seen it in too many maps before, but as you can see, you can get on the roof of this. So it's omnidirectional once you're on the roof. We switch this guy to enemy. You see all the soldiers on the roof can shoot at this guy. So it actually makes it really strong on the middle of this map. At least for like one squad. You can see you can put 2 squads inside it. Can fit models down the bottom and in like these areas as well, but only 1 model per side. It's not going to be that strong. But yeah, 1 squad inside this is going to lead to some strong control through the middle of this zone over here. Worth mentioning, and very pretty as well. Look at all these nice lily ponds. Big old cliffside. I like this feature as well over here. Kind to the ice, this one. Interesting, slight divergence on how you get up here. This one maybe a little bit further away. I wanted to check this as well, like over the central VP, if you could maybe plant a machine gun up here with the heavy cover, how good that would be. But look at this bug I found. What's going on with my machine gun's firing arc as I move my mouse around? That never used to happen. Even if I put it like real short like this. once it starts setting up, it sets up correctly. But I don't know what kind of bug is that. Never seen that before. But yeah, it just about covers the entire thing. You can maybe squeeze right onto the edge. Or maybe if I reposition, that won't be possible. So yeah, machine gun up here would be pretty effective, and you can shoot down this hill. So if I spawn in a unit here for the enemy, a machine gun can shoot down there. So yeah, it is maybe a pretty good spot for a machine gun. Another building here. Looks like they've blocked off some of the windows.
That's our new nav crew. Find me the west window.
Send word. Over.
MG-42 and crew ready.
But, okay, yeah, it looks like 3 windows can still fire, so you can still use this building against this VP as well. Makes this building actually quite strong. Interesting. Got some vineyard action coming down here. Looks like a lot of the vines have kind of been taken off the points themselves. Not that much cover on the points. Cut-offs reasonably exposed, like no heavy cover here for you to take cover on either side, it looks like. So maybe you're going to need to sandbag up over here to try and swing, hold on to these cut-offs. Whereas I imagine this is a bit heavy cover down here.
Silence!
No heavy cover on this. Looks like it would be, right? Interesting. But is heavy cover on this side? On this cut-off? You gotta watch out for stuff like that because, you know, the enemies on this side could come down here, cap this, sit behind heavy cover, then pushing back into this zone is going to be really hard. You gotta watch out for those kind of asymmetries. That's going to make it tougher for this spawn, I would imagine, next to this feature. Might need to try nullify some of this heavy cover over here to make it a bit more fair. Alright, on to the next one. Having a look at the sector layout of the new 3v3 map, Longstop Hill. Going for the munitions first, we've got a high munitions in the middle, 2 mediums here, equal on both sides. Got 4 mediums along this little band here, and 2 lows. So it's 6 mediums, 2 lows, 1 high, for a total of 86 per minute, which is pretty standard for munitions income. We'll also say that in terms of layout, these munitions points got 26, or 25 rather, right next to each of the bases. So a lot of very safe munitions for both teams. So it should be quite a high munitions map overall thanks to that safe munitions. Now having a look at the fuel points, we've got these 2 lows down here in the corner, 1 medium fuel here in the middle, 1 low on either side to save fuel right next to the bases, then 2 lows up here. So a total of 4 lows, 1 medium, 50 per minute. But yeah, in terms of where these low fuels are planted, only 5 safe fuel for each team here. The rest of them all in the middle of the map. You're going to have to fight for them. So it could be a bit of a low fuel map, especially if there's a lot of decapping going on. And if you get off to a bad start, you know, on multiple fronts, you're probably going to fall quite far behind on fuel. So it could lead to some interesting matches. In terms of the cutoffs, I don't imagine they're going to be that relevant. They're quite tucked away. These strategic points going to be quite hard to get to, and then they're not really like going to be cutting that much off. So yeah, they're not that relevant, but that's probably fine with so much fuel being hotly contested through the middle of the map. Let's have a look around the map, starting out with HQ spacing. If I put a med bunker between the two, you can see you can share healing. So important to note there. In terms of the overall design on this map, we kind of have like this lowlands area down here. Then as we move throughout the middle of the map, kind of gets higher and higher up into a more arid top zone. So interesting design on this one. Kind of got like pretty even distribution of buildings. Should be pretty fair and on cover. Fair on both sides throughout here. Similar story over here. Maybe slightly better cover for this side, but nothing shockingly out of order. This is where the high munitions point is. Could see quite a lot of combat, quite open. A little bit of light cover around, but that's about it. Look around this sector. Decently open as well. And we kind of converge up into this area, a bit more urban, coming up the hill. Quite a lot of cover, a lot of buildings over here. Gonna need your mortars and your flamers to deal with this. The medium fuel down here as well. Big blockers on both sides though. In terms of vision through this area, I had a look around. So you can get some like kind of unusual angles on some of these buildings.
Check your windows.
Everyone assemble outside. Don't forget your
Commandant.
See some but not all. I think they've been pretty careful about where they've placed a lot of these structures on this map so that these buildings aren't too OP in terms of what they can provide you, but this one certainly seems pretty strong, this building over here. We're coming up into the more ruins type area. Yeah, cut off quite nestled away over there. Look at these features up here, kind of built into the cliffside, eh? Quite like this. Interesting kind of bunker placement here. It's a little bit asymmetrical. Kind of got this one covering this lane pretty effectively, but you can kind of sneak around this side or through this little channel here. Whereas on the other side, this one maybe a little bit more offset towards the top. Make it harder to get through on this, squeeze around on this side, but a bit more space over here as well. A little bit asymmetrical, but, you know, kind of keeps it interesting. Don't think it's like imbalanced too badly on either side. Onto the sector layout of the new 4v4 map, Alam al Halfa. This is a community-made map made by the Sphinx. We're starting out with the munitions points. Got this kind of ring of 5 low munitions down here. 3 medium munitions through the middle of the map here. Then we've got 2 more lows over here. 2 highs in the corner. So it's a total of 7 lows, 3 mediums, 2 highs, 97 munitions per minute. So pretty high munitions on offer in this map. Now having a look at fuel, we've got 2 low fuels close to each base, so very safe fuel there. And then 2 low fuels pushed out to either ends. So 8 low fuels, 40 per minute. On the low side of fuel, but pretty safe having these fuels right next to your base. In terms of strategic points, we've actually got 5 on this map, which isn't too common. 1 extra one down here, which kind of allows a bit of a different cutoff play dynamic between the 2 sides. These ones have got some pretty severe cutoffs going each way. Could be cutting this off. Whereas this way, maybe it's a little bit softer. Could be having a few more options to connect to your base. And maybe a little bit extra manpower on this map as well. A desert theme to this map. Let's have a look at it. It's reasonably open here at the start, but then we come into this zone quite urbanized. You know, healthy number of buildings, a lot of heavy cover, so you're going to need your flamers and your mortars for this one. A lot of buildings over here. Not super tight though or anything. There's a bit of space between them. Gives you some room to maneuver. But then when we come down into the middle of the map, it is super wide open. Look at this. Quite a lot of like heavy cover around, but in terms of sight blockers, there's almost nothing here. So you're going to need to bring your long-range specialists to this center zone, and I can imagine some chaotic tank fights happening in the middle of this map in the late game. Super open. Coming up onto the other side. This one is, you know, reasonably open. Still a lot of heavy cover on this map, I will say that. There's lots and lots of heavy cover. Even though it's like a, you know, reasonably open desert. With all these tank traps and whatnot, he's had in a lot of heavy cover overall. So yeah, that's a look at Alam al Halfa. Hope you 4v4 players enjoy it. And the 1v1 map Pachino Stalemate has received a pretty big sector redesign. Most importantly, these used to be medium fuels, now they are high munitions points, and the medium fuels have been pushed out to the outer edges. So that's interesting. You know, it used to be the case that quite often your opponent would rush one of these buildings, and and by the time you built a mortar or something to counter it, you're already like a minute and a half behind on fuel. Would be quite punishing. So that's going to lessen the impact of that, but getting these cutoffs will be much more potent now. You'll be able to cut off your opponent's medium fuel. Could be very costly, so I think we'll see a huge amount more cutoff play on these points over here. As for the rest of the map, yeah, redesign, like these used to be high menu points, now they're only mediums. This has been like moved slightly, I think further out as well, this medium. Just a little bit further away from that base, and maybe had a slight redesign of the cover and stuff through this area. Also on this point, got a new like passageway through here. I think they've like slightly tweaked up here. Maybe used to be more walled off by shrubbery. But that's about it. Apart from that, pretty similar. It's mainly the sector redesign. I will say now after this change, it's a pretty low munitions map, right? We've got 72 munitions per minute. I think that might be the lowest of any map in the pool. So pretty low munitions, and I could actually imagine, with high amount of cutoff play happening, being pretty low in fuel overall as well. So I have to see how this map plays. On to the feature improvements from this patch, and we're starting out with a controversial one. Come to menu, settings, then go down to online on the bottom. Chat visibility by default is disabled, so you won't be able to see chat from your team or your enemies by default at all. To turn it back on here. It's defaulted to off. So yeah, that's a pretty big change. Obviously a lot of people, like initially, once this patch happens, will be kind of typing into the void because nobody will be able to read what they're saying. Apparently what John said, that if you try to type a message in and send it, like an alert will come up saying, hey, you've got chat turned off, you need to turn it on if you want to send this message. So if you don't like watch these patch note videos, at least you'll have some way of finding out and discovering that chat has been turned off. So, that mitigates it a little bit, but it's kind of sad that Relic decided the best way for new players to experience the game, or for players in general to experience the game, is to not be able to talk with each other, right? Like, what does that say? That is not good. So I'm quite sad. Like, I don't play low rank 4v4, so I don't really know what the chat experience is like down there. I know that you can mute people in this game, you can report people as well. I thought that that would be enough to handle those toxic people, but apparently not. So they've decided to turn chat off. Relic have adjusted a load of reticles. Those are like these red UI circles when you try to use an ability like throw a grenade, barrage to an off map. Basically the zone where the damage could happen. They've adjusted that for a load of US forces and Wehrmacht units, which I think is really good. Just makes it easier to use and target these kind of abilities. You may not be aware, but with a lot of these kind of barrage weapons, you can see trying to do barrage at minimum range with the Stummel. Got about 4 circle for range on either side, but if I try to do one at maximum range, you can see now the circle goes a full 5 range out. So they adjust the reticle depending on how far away you go. Like, the further away, the bigger the scatter, so the bigger the circle needs to be. Probably easier to see with the Vesper. And here, got about, 7-ish range on either side of the point where I'm clicking. If I go out to max range, probably like 25 range. So, yeah, they've made a load of adjustments in this. Just makes it easier to know, the damage zone, what you're going to be doing, especially as a newer player. Relic also made some changes to high contrast mode, which is in the accessibility menu and the settings. Personally, I've never seen this before, but sometimes these kind of things can offer competitive advantages. So let's go have a look at it. Turn it on over here. Requires me to restart my game though, okay. Here we are in the main menu with high contrast mode enabled. And you can see that if we hover over the buttons, they go blue, very bright, very easy to see. So it's quite a big shift. One thing I did notice, I was just having a look around before, if I come to the loadout screen, like what are these numbers here? What's going on there? If I click on this as well, like equip, and look at the unequip button down here. Like what's happened? So I think high contrast mode still needs some more work in the loadout area. But it seems to, seems to work pretty well in other spots at least. Let's have a look at it in game. Here we are, the menu screen kind of blocks off those face plates underneath.
We have manpower available for
Ooh,
use.
numbers are blue now. attack map. That's interesting. Kind of dulls these down a bit. Still looks the same in there. Oh, but the confirm button's different. And maybe these are a bit more apparent, blocked off underneath on the command points. That's interesting. Oh, it changes the menu for cheat commands mod too, eh? I don't think I like that on cheat mod.
You need tools.
Oh, look at that. 3. Oh, that's crazy, man.
We are veteran. What is our assignment?
Still looks pretty similar there. Ah, these, usually when you hover over this, it's like semi-opaque, right? You can see a little bit of terrain underneath, but now it completely blocks off underneath when you're in these kind of menus as well. Interesting, look at high contrast mode. Okay, I spoke too soon because I came to my loadout without high contrast mode enabled. And you can see I've still got these weird numbers and stuff all around, so something's broken with the loadout. Relic are continuing to improve the AI, which I like to see because even though I don't play any modes with or against the AI, you know, it's kind of like the on-ramp for new players. They'll play a few matches against the AI, figure things out over time, and then eventually make the jump to multiplayer. So the closer it replicates a real multiplayer game, the better, you know, the less churn there'll be as players make that step into multiplayer, and the less games are ruined by, you know, inexperienced players doing the wrong things because the AI taught them the wrong things to do, ruining people's multiplayer games. So yeah, it's good for everyone to have the AI continuously improve like this. So they said they made a bunch of changes to how they define the front lines. So the AI should be a little bit more aggressive again this patch and send their healthy vehicles to the front lines more often. Also changed build orders, so they'll use less early game-like vehicles in the late game. They adjusted the AI's retreat timings to account for the TTK changes made in the previous patch. The AI should also now react better to being targeted by units in the fog of war, so they should get out of the harm's way when they're getting barraged by like a mortar or something like that. On top of that, for their battle group abilities, as they unlock those higher tier abilities, they'll start to save their munitions and use those more often instead of using like the early recon and smoke drops, constantly spamming those out in the late game. So they'll actually start to use those strong abilities in the late game, which is cool. And finally, they'll build engineers more often when they've got vehicles. Makes sense. A huge thank you to all of my Patreon backers, and if you enjoy these videos, I hope you consider coming on board.